Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you may have tuned in. Welcome to this latest installment in the Black Hat webinar series, why a Global 2000 firm implemented cloud detection and response for its next generation SOC, brought to you by Black Hat, GEM Security, and Informa. Terry Sweeney here with Black Hat. I'll be your moderator today. Just a few quick announcements before we get started. If you've been here before, you know that this webinar is designed to be interactive between you and the presenters. We strongly encourage participation and are happy to take your questions and comments. Once today's speakers finish, they'll be answering your questions. You know the drill. Type your questions into that Ask a Question text box on the bottom left of the console. We'll be answering as many questions as time allows. Slides will also advance automatically throughout today's event. You can also download a copy of the presentation from the resources box at the bottom of your console. We also recommend that you disable your pop-up blockers, and if for some reason the slides aren't advancing, try using that F5 key on your keyboard to refresh the console. If you experience any technical problems, please visit the webinar help guide by clicking on that help ? Icon on the bottom right of the console. So onto our presentation today. Why a Global 2000 firm implemented cloud detection and response for its next generation SOC. Discussing today's topic is David Corral, OT Head of Cybersecurity Architecture for global energy firm Repsol. He's joined by Ron Konigsberg, CTO and co-founder of GEM Security. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. David, you'll be speaking first, but before we hear from you, we want to hear from our audience. We have a couple of polls for you to kick things off and to do a little temperature taking. So let's roll up this first poll here. We want you to help us understand the scope of your organization's cloud operations. So we're asking here, obviously, how many cloud providers are you currently using in your organization? You may need to scroll down to see all the possible responses, but you should be seeing 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, more than 3. So if our audience could take a minute to click on one of those responses, we're curious as to how many cloud service providers may be in use across your organization. David, I'm curious from your perspective as an end user organization. I have an idea of what your answer might be, but rather than assume, tell us what you would imagine to be the most popular response here.
Well, I could say if I have to bet for one trend in this response, is that it could be more than one. For sure, I think that the adoption of cloud services is widely spread in all the companies, and the multi-cloud adoption, several cloud service providers, is also widely expressed because sometimes because of reasons of avoiding vendor locking, sometimes because the core functionalities of each of the cloud service providers that maybe some of them have some advantages or in terms of analytics, in terms of storage, in terms of different features that the companies are looking for. So I would expect definitely that maybe 2, 3, or 3+ would be the most voted answers.
Sure. Ron, I don't know if you're a betting man. What's your sense of which answer will generate?
I think assuming the audience, given David's background is mostly enterprise, it would be more than 3. And in general, what we see for enterprises, M&A, use cases as such, at least the 3 big ones are very prominent. So AWS, Azure, GCP, and there are more avant-garde like Ali Cloud for people using producing applications that are targeting the Chinese market. We see OCI and SAP for core enterprises. So it's definitely something that we see as very common in enterprises to be way beyond a single cloud shop.
Sure. Well, let's break the suspense here. It looks like it's a tie here between 2 and more than 3. Interesting.
Yeah, if you count 3 and 3 plus, then 3 plus wins. If you count 3 as 3 plus.
Right. Not a big surprise there. I don't think any of us are stunned by that result.
No.
Let's move right then to our second poll. Here we'd like to know how many cloud security incidents you've experienced in the past 12 months. Again, you may need to scroll down to see all the responses, but you should be seeing 5 responses total here. It's pretty clear. Well, there's plenty of possibilities here. Ron, what are your thoughts about how our audience may respond to this poll question?
I think people are usually a bit shy when it's speaking about security incidents. But I think since the poll is anonymous, right? So I think it gives us a bit more. So it's a good opportunity to remind that it gives a bit more chances of being open. Based on recent polls that I've seen, we have seen 80% plus of organizations that experience at least one. So I would say 1 and 2 I expect to be the dominant answer. In the end, organizations are not experiencing, and also each organization has its own flavor of what an incident is, right? In the end, if you had something that you closed, like a compromised user that you closed immediately as it happened, was it an incident or not? So I think usually with such questions, you try to be quite permissive. So you would want like anything that counts as something that required attention would be a security incident. And in that case, I think it's pretty prominent.
So it's not just an incident if you have to report it to a regulatory authority, for example. There are other kinds of
hopefully you didn't get to this level.
Right. Let's check and see how our audience has weighed in here. Well, we're sort of polarized at the 2 extremes, aren't we?
Yeah, between 0 and 2, I think. David,
are you surprised by these results?
Not really. I was going to say that this one it will be more challenging to guess because of some of the reasons that Ron explained, and also because I think that the variety of capabilities of the organizations in terms of abilities to detect incidents in the cloud are very wide. I mean, some of them are very capable, some of them are not so well prepared. So this is, I think, a metric that is not very mature yet, although the statistics shown that if I had to bet for some of the responses, I would have said 1 or 2 to be the most populated ones. But well, I think I am not really surprised.
Okay. Good enough. Well, good stuff, everyone. We appreciate our audience weighing in on both of these questions. With that, David, I'm going to hand things over to you. Take us away, if you would, sir.
Okay. So thanks, Terry. Thanks for the introduction. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. First of all, I would like to say thanks to Black Hat and Gent for inviting me today to share some insights on how we see SOCs evolving, and especially how relevant is to master cloud focused SecOps in the days that we are living. This is David Corral. I lead the security by design and the security architecture practice in Repsol globally. both for IT, digital, and OT environments. My background is very deeply based in cybersecurity, first as a consultant and team manager in different consultancy and engineering firms, and then joining Repsol, where I have spent more than 14, almost 15 years already developing different security practices, first more related to SOC and security engineering, and then leading globally practices such as cybersecurity risk strategy and architecture. For those that don't know Repsol is a multi-energy company which is completely devoted to serve the citizens and the society to obtain the most optimal combination of delivered energy with the most optimized carbon footprint possible. Leading in that way the energy transition. We are truly committed to supplying sustainable energy, products and services, and strongly based on principles of innovation, efficiency, respect, at the end to create value in a sustainable way for the progress of the society. If I have to give like a brief overview of what Repsol is today in terms of figures, we are a company of about 25,000 employees with presence in more than 20 countries, and with a strong footprint in the whole value chain of the energy, from the exploration of new sources of energy, the development of the assets that at the end generate, distribute, and finally commercialize to the last mile, to the final customer, or to other businesses, the products that we finalize. Our goal at the end is that they consume a sustainable energy coming from different sources, and our hubs of energy production, using all the resources available, offer a balanced mix of reduced carbon emissions and cost-optimized energy, playing a very relevant role in supplying an essential service for the society at the end. As you can see in the slide, we have installations of oil and gas, renewable and low carbon emissions assets. We have refineries, 7 industrial complexes that are being transformed to become multi-energy hubs capable of producing renewable fuels. And we are very, very focused as well in the customers with a very wide network of gas stations, very important to anchor our strategy, and of course to commercialize the different forms of electricity and gas that we finally produce. As well, Repsol has put a lot of investment in innovation and technology, and our program of digital transformation is one of the keys there. We have more than 500 digital initiatives in place currently, and we are running a very ambitious digital program that is, as you can imagine, a huge driver for our cybersecurity strategy, and continuously is challenging our capabilities to secure these new projects, businesses, technologies that we introduce in the company. We need, as a result, to be very agile, very precise in order to maintain the security levels according to the company risk appetite. That at the end is our goal. And as a result of all these drivers, all these agility that we need, all the transformation that we are experiencing, during 2023, we developed a new strategy where we made a very reflective exercise, selecting different approach, benchmarkings, maturity assessments. We collaborate with different entities, and we determine potential different future scenarios. Those scenarios were ranging from scenarios where extreme evolution of cybersecurity was reflected, to others that were more conservative in the way that cybersecurity was going to evolve in the next 3 to 5 years. And finally, assuming a rationale of continuous increase in the complexity and intensity of the context. The context is composed for us of many different things: economics, geopolitics, regulations, attackers' perspective, technology trends, technology innovation that we introduce. Finally, we define some key risk typologies to address and some strategic work streams to execute that you can see in the slide. Some of them are more related to the ransomware threat. Some of them are more related to the data breach and inside the threat, and other ones are enablers that we think that we have to develop in order to become sustainable in the long term in cybersecurity. For us, human-centric cybersecurity, business alignment, and the capabilities that we need to keep up with the technology and with the evolution of the company are key. So we have reflected that in our strategic plan with those 3 lines of enablement. And for all of them, we think that the SOC concept becomes paramount, the SOC function, the SOC concept, and specifically speaking, at the very end, there are like 2 characteristics that guide the design of our modern SOC. So one of them is speed, because at the end of the day, what we try to do is reduce as much as possible the time to detect and time to respond to a threat. And also that's a time frame that the attackers are stretching more and more. So we need it to be more and more agile and be able to respond in shorter time frames. And the other one is continuous adaptation. We have to adapt to new technology, to new regulation, to new techniques that the attackers are introducing, and at the end, to new surfaces of vulnerability that we have to be able to protect. So when we think about the modern SOC, we and in order to get to those goals, to those 2 main goals that we have, we define like 4 main principles or pillars in the design of the new SOC. Those that you can see in the slide. The first one is a very good threat-informed defense. We think that it's basic to understand what actors are doing, to understand the tactics and techniques and procedures that they are using, and especially the ones that are more focused in our industry, in the energy industry. We believe, as a result, very heavily in threat intelligence, and we think that threat intelligence have to be actionable. I mean, it has to be embedded somewhat in our processes of detection. So that's another thing that guide at the end our processes, our architecture, our operations. We think that is paramount to adhere to standards, and we think that MITRE in that sense is like the most common one, the most widely adopted, and is continuously being evolved and adapted to different environments. So we are adhering to it. We need to assure that we have identified what our crown jewels are, what the most important assets in our organization are, both in OT and in IT, and we need to be aligned with the CNDB. We have to be aligned with the vulnerability management process, and everything has to be really coordinated and coherent in order to set a good security posture for what is more important. And finally, in this principle, we think that we have to keep together and align red and blue teams with best practices. So we try to keep continuing exercising those practices and making them better. The next principle is continuous and precise attack surface visibility. As I said before, I think that one of the main challenges that we have, and we will enter into it more deeply afterwards when we speak about cloud, is the continuous surface expansion that we have. It's not only a matter of adoption of technology, it's a matter of, Rob mentioned previously regarding the adoption of different cloud service providers. We have mergers and acquisitions. They come with their technology, they come with their attack surface. So we need to continuously assess that attack surface, and that's not limited to the classic infrastructure for sure. Now we have other surfaces that have expanded dramatically in the past few years. Especially, I could highlight cloud, I could highlight identity, and obviously for us, OT environments are very, very critical. We have to have a better understanding, a continuous understanding of their exposure, data, applications. That we feel that it's not a matter only of infrastructure, endpoint, servers, network. It's a matter of the applications that are vulnerable and that are more and more exposed. APIs is another clear surface to focus in. But I wanted to highlight cloud and identity in the cloud as a very risky one that we have to focus a lot. We have some doubts of what will bring artificial intelligence. That will be for sure in the next few years another new surface that we need to secure, we need to use, we need to adopt, but we also have to secure and make a responsible use of it. So the SOC function has to cover it somewhat. And obviously, all this is not possible if you don't have a clear procedures and you don't implement playbooks for these new attack surfaces, because the work is paramount, and you need to be like very policy procedural oriented, and then automate and define the playbooks in order to act, because if not, it becomes not manageable. The third principle that we use in our design or in the SOC that we are building for the future is focus, what we have called focus automation. We think in this complexity, in this expansion of the attack surface, if you are not able to automate, you are going to be completely overwhelmed by the noise, by the alerts, by all the information that you have. And automation means a lot of different things for a lot of different organizations. We see it as a first step, as a way of reducing noise, enriching data as soon as possible in the process. And then, if possible, obviously automate the whole process, automate the response, orchestrate the response, and so on. Then another very important thing for us in terms of automation is the continuous configuration improvement of the stacks. We have, I think that many different companies, when they reach a certain maturity level of security, we have a lot of technology that helps us with the security posture, but sometimes maybe we don't spend the needed time in order to configure it optimally. And we think that security by default, continuous improvement in the configuration is something that can give us a lot of automation as well, a lot of reducing the noise, and a lot of efficiency in our operations. Obviously, then we need specific pieces of architecture in order to accelerate cross detection, correlation, and their XDR, SOAR technologies appear, and we also are investing heavily in them. And as I said in the previous slide, very well defined playbooks have to be defined, and then have to be automated with this kind of technologies that we are putting in our architectures. Obviously, in this process, there will be some L1 processes that are very direct to automate, and that we have to focus because they are like low-hanging fruits that we can improve a lot in a very short time period. And finally, the last pillar that we have taken into account is, as it cannot be in another way, specialized human capabilities. We want to focus in continuous applied training. I think that's key for our defense teams. That is something that we have proved very very it has helped us to reduce a lot the risk in the last few years. We need to focus on level 3 capabilities in our SOC. We want to enrich those capabilities in our internal resources. And also we have detected that, especially in the cloud, we need like cross-disciplinary knowledge, and we need other people involved from the different product and platform teams in order to be able to detect and especially to respond to security incidents that we are seeing, or security alerts that we are seeing. So that's another key difference, I think. We are expanding the concept of security champion, and we think that it can be key to have key people in different platforms in order to be able to react as soon as possible and as efficient as possible. Obviously, artificial intelligence, data science capabilities will be key in the next few years, and we we do it already, but we need to count more and more heavily on vendor teams, very qualified third-party partners, because we think that they add real value, especially when we are speaking of how to deploy, how to configure optimally their technology. So with all of this in mind, we bet the past year that for reaching this kind of principles, pillars, and at the end the objectives that we pursue, we needed to have like a cutting-edge cloud detection and incident response architecture. Why? Because almost a very, very high percentage of our computing right now is in the cloud. We rely heavily, especially in Azure and AWS. For us, cloud is everywhere. It's like an 80% of our computing capability. Cloud is different in the way that needs to be secured. Obviously, the principles are the same, but the understanding of the cloud is very important in order to apply those principles. And another thing that we have realized in the past 4 or 5 years that we have been working in this digital journey of our company, and also of the security of our company, is that the cloud is very, very complex. It's complex to understand. It's complex to separate what is really relevant and what is not relevant. Complex to have experts in each and every service that the cloud providers put in at our disposal. So we need to have a very, very good technology and operationalize it very well in order to be able to cope with the complexity and the expansion that we have in cloud. We have seen as well that the traditional CMs that we were using are not so well equipped to understand these cloud environments. Also, the cloud native CSP security tools, you lack the global visibility if you have a multi-cloud strategy. We have also invested in CSPM technology, but they are fundamentally focused on posture management and not so focused in being able to detect precisely threats and respond to them. So what we feel is that in this context, it became especially relevant to have a lot of accuracy in detection, context enrichment, and also a very good understanding of the behavior of the entities of the cloud and the identities in the cloud. That will give us a potential capability of being much more quick in triage, in investigation, and at the end in responding to potential cloud security incidents. And that's where we met with GEM, that as you can see there, meets very well all the 4 principles and pillars that I explained before. We have found there the threat-informed defense implemented because they have an attacker's perspective. They are completely aligned with the MITRE. That's something key for us. They are very specialized in the cloud environment. So their engines are especially dedicated, built in order to understand the context, the behavior, and that's for us is a key differentiator in other technologies that we had evaluated or that we had deployed. Also, they embrace completely automation. They are open to integrations. They have workflow engines to solve incidents, and they are being able also to introduce capabilities in terms of investigation, in terms of forensics. That's something that gives us a lot of quickness, a lot of different capabilities that we didn't have before. And in terms of human capabilities, we have met a great management team, brilliant expertise, very flexible to adapt to our customer demands. And at the end, that's what we evaluate a lot. We have a deployment where we have Azure and AWS, all the environments of Azure and AWS that more or less those are the figures, like 50 subscriptions on Azure, 130 accounts of AWS. All of them are integrated in GEM through the control plane, and then we also integrate those alerts in our SOC RCM platform, and we push those alerts both to the product teams in order to evaluate the alerts and save potential response time. And obviously, the SOC analysts have all the visibility. So they are reaching times that we were not capable to reach before in terms of acknowledging a threat. GEM is providing us TTP detections that are very, very cloud specific. We are able to have full visibility for our cloud resources. Once that you do deployment, you have that visibility embedded. Also, you have like a vision of your readiness in terms of cloud security detection posture. And what I have explained before, the key differentiator that we saw was the deep insights about the cloud threats, the understanding of the entities of the threat of the clouds and their behavior. So that gave us a lot of chance of reducing false positives, aggregation of alerts by adding that context information. And finally, as you can see here, we engaged with GEM, I think it was like 10 months ago or something like that, and during the past 8 months we have been able, GEM has been able to deliver more than 300 out-of-the-box TTPs for us. They have produced like 100 relevant alerts in this time frame. It can seem to be a lot, but if you do the maths at the end, there are no more than 4 or 5 alerts a week, which is a ratio that we consider very, very relevant as well. We have improved the readiness that we have in terms of cloud detection in a 15%. And also we felt that we have been listened to our demands, and they have prioritized different integration, different functionalities that we were being asking for. That way, we are increasing our efficiency and our speed. That at the end was one of the main goals that we had when we designed the modern SOC. And that's all from my side. With this, I turn back to Terry, that will continue with the rest of the flow. Thanks.
Thank you, David. We've got one more poll to put before our audience. Here we are asking for your top 3 challenges around cloud detection and incident response. Again, I'm going to ask you to scroll down since there are 6 responses on this one. We ask you to click no more than 3 boxes on this one, but we're looking for your top 3 responses here. Audience members, please take a minute just to click the top challenges that you're experiencing there. This is an interesting one. This is a bit of a Rubik's Cube of a question. David, you queued this up beautifully. If you had to guess, what would you imagine amongst well, I won't ask you to name the top three, but which response do you imagine will generate the most responses?
This is a difficult one, Tori. I don't know. I could say that all of them are real challenge that we have as enterprise companies with the cloud. But if I had to say three of them, I would bet for A, E, and also C. I think that at the end, lack of real-time visibility, lack of expertise, and lack of expertise in order to stay current with the detections. I think those are the three main ones for me, and I hope for the audience.
Ron, what's your sense? Briefly now, we're moving quickly here, but just curious, what response you imagine will generate the most replies?
Yeah, so I will bet also on C to some extent, and I think what David touched in the end is that for enterprises, it's the expertise, the knowledge, the visibility. So the gaps are more interesting than like things like complexity to some degree or cost. It's more the coverage and to make sure that they have what they need to provide the value for the business versus anything else.
Good enough. Well, let's see how our audience weighed in here. Real-time visibility, time to manually investigate and contain incidents, and looks like a tie for third with lack of expertise and too many disparate tools. Ron, any surprises there?
No, we learn again. I think it's pretty aligned with my thought. People are more challenged with the knowledge gap versus anything else in the end.
Excellent. Ron, I'll hand the floor over to you at this point.
Cool, thank you. Okay, first I will thank David for the amazing insights. I think I will try to be quick. It's always more interesting to hear someone like David, who is doing cybersecurity from the trenches of an enterprise with all the challenges, multiple people, skills, fronts to manage, versus myself in the end, highly specialized in what we do, but also have the liberty to be very hyper focused on cloud, right? So in the end, I think it's a simpler problem than we tackle versus the practitioners that are trying to protect the full organization. My name is Ron. I'm the CTO and one of the founders at GEM. I'm excited to present GEM. We built GEM from the trenches of doing incident response, and to focus in the end of what we see is the revolution of security operation teams. I think the modern SOC, the evolution of the SOC with AI, with the adoption of cloud, with the complexity, it's a key trend today and a key need. And we are tackling that problem, modernizing the SOC, with the focus on adapting the SOC to the skill and pace of the cloud. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. Great. And we'll speak a bit about attacks, about architecture, and then a demo. And we'll leave enough time for questions. I saw already some really amazing questions in the Q&A. So if you have some, write them down. We will do our best to address them. Speaking about cloud attacks, and I will try to run through the animations. In the end, I think the most interesting thing, cloud attacks happen. They happen more and more. We see attacks that are targeted and built for the cloud. In the end, for enterprises, it's mostly financial, to get access to data, to potentially do NG types, new generation types of ransomware or data theft. And we also see that it's very much identity-based, and David also mentioned it a bit. In the end, identity in the cloud it's the real challenge. And when you're doing cloud detection response, essentially you're doing a lot of identity, significant portion about data, and some of the interim. And it's machine identity, vendor, supply chain, human, and then it's all of that, and understanding what is operating in the cloud, what's unusual. And we see more and more attacks, more and more identity, more and more built for the cloud, living off the cloud even. the challenge that we see, and it's very much aligned with the poll, I think it's great to do it after the poll, we see that organizations challenge with response. In the end, the measurable aspect is MTTR, mean time to respond, which we see it's predominantly hours to respond to an attack versus minutes, which is what you need to be relevant. So you need, and we'll discuss it in the next one, but you see, you need minutes to be relevant, but in practice, it takes hours to respond. And what do hours actually symbol? It's one, prioritization. I would say it's also in the good state where you get an alert and you actually refer to it, right? Otherwise, it's infinite or none. And in the end, it means that you don't have the skill, that the process is not set, and probably the information is spread around multiple people. So that's what we see, and that's simply too slow. If you look at cloud attacks, it's oftentimes, I would say, below 30 minutes. Now, complex attacks, you have this below 30 minutes, and then there are tiers also for attackers. So you get some access, and then there are tiers, and someone with more elevated, more experience, if it's a company which is of high profile, would jump in. But for that initial access through something that you left open, or a key that you pasted on Pastebin, or a user that was compromised and now it's published on the darknet, to initial discovery, automated discovery, lateral movement, and potentially understanding if that's interesting, super fast. And if you want to close that window while it's early, where it's much easier, you need to respond fast, and that's the challenge that we solve. I would run through this one just because of time, but I will say in the end, what do you need, or what do SecOps need to ensure that they have when they're looking of a cloud attack? They need to ensure that they have the relevant telemetry. Let's assume, God forbid, you have a cloud incident tomorrow. Do you have the right telemetry? Do you have all the information you need in order to investigate? Do you have the right detection coverage to detect an attack in progress? So we have all I think it was 33% that answered they had no attacks. So I would say, okay, cool. 67% had some incident in the cloud. Out of the 33%, what's the portion of people that had an incident and the ones that didn't know? So you need to make sure that you have the detections in place, that you know how to respond, and that you have the right playbooks, automations to stop attacks as they happen. David mentioned the lack of, that without automations and with the lack of automations, you can't really be where you need to be with the volume that organizations handle today. And lastly, have the right tools for containment, forensics, when you actually need to run them. So this is the basis for what we see for cloud detection response. And in the end, our approach, very modern, is the data lake approach, connect natively to the cloud, to cloud provider, IDPs, PaaS, process all the information. I think if you work with security operations, you know that you need to be embedded in their workflow. So you need to understand that they have OT, they have on-prem, they have endpoints. And if you will be yet another platform, they will not be able to leverage you to the best extent. You need to be embedded in their workflow. But it's very much expected to have your own UI capabilities, experience for investigation, because investigation in the cloud is dramatically different. You need to have much more context. You need to have all that information in place, and that's what we see as a key need. So I would say our model is CrowdStrike or EDR for the IaaS, EDR for the PaaS. You connect us to the cloud. We are the hub that understands cloud, builds the context, and when you need to actually respond, you get to Gem, where we handle this experience for you, versus sending all the raw telemetry to a SIEM, which is generally purpose, and rebuilding it yourself. So a very modern approach for that. And with that, I will jump to a quick demo, which we'll try to do in something like 7 minutes to leave enough time for questions. The goal of the demo is to show you Gem and to ensure that you're able to see something beyond just slides, and to understand exactly what does it mean. So first, with a cloud-native tool, we expect to connect to your cloud very fast, no matter how big you are. David mentioned hundreds or tens of accounts, projects, subscriptions, and that's the goal. Deploy in seconds, no matter what the organization size. That's leveraging the capabilities of the cloud, plus the fact that this type of platform has the liberty of being agentless. And that's about deployment. In addition to the usual deployment, which is agentless, read-only, with CDR, there is also the response element. So that's separate on purpose to allow fine-grained control versus the read and detection integration versus the one that actually allows you to run activity within the environment, and it is also available just in time. The first thing that we do when we connect to a cloud environment, we build a full inventory of that environment to understand exactly every resource, every machine, every user, every policy, every Lambda function, database, bucket, user in AD, public AP, everything that exists within the cloud environment. And the goal for that is to understand essentially how the environment is set up. That's very valuable to understand the telemetry that you need to collect, context for detection, context for investigation. If you don't understand cloud, if you only process logs, you're a SIEM. And they're proven to be very limited to providing, let's call it cloud detection response, which is relevant. The first thing that we do on top of the inventory is to answer the questions. Let's assume you had a cloud incident tomorrow. Are you ready to respond? And with that, from our experience from incident response, it's mostly to understand that you have the right telemetry. More often than not, you arrive to a security incident, and it's the first time you understand that critical telemetry is missing. So we show the current logging coverage of the cloud, or we analyze it based on two views. One is MITRE, and the second one is based on different categories, and they are tied together. In the cloud, the center of MITRE, from execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense evasion, etc., that's based on control, things like CloudTrail, activity logs, audit logs. Initial access is spread between control and network, load balancer logs, VPC. And as you go further down in MITRE, execution, exfiltration, impact, that's where data and compute become more relevant. So there are ties between the two, and we're able to tie it down to the resource level. So in the end, it's two views which are built bottom up from the resource level, one to MITRE and the other to the different categories. And that allows for security operation teams for pretty much the first time to have good visibility into the logs that they are actually getting, and not only what's driving to the SIEM, and to have a meaningful discussion with the security architecture and cloud teams. Cool. Once we understand the current logging scheme, we run our TTPs against these logs. GEM currently runs against hundreds of TTPs. We have over 500 different detectors, where each detector, each TTP can cover multiple techniques. So essentially, it's thousands of different techniques. They are built from a dedicated cloud threat research team that understands cloud very well, and they're built based on CloudFront Intel, Cloud Attacks in the Wild that we model, using red team tools, customer ideas, data research, sensitive service research, etc., building the most comprehensive cloud detection tool for the cloud today. And that creates a lot of opportunity to essentially in a day increase your detection coverage. If you would plug it to an environment of an enterprise, it's going to be very noisy. So on top of that, we have a layer of behavioral analytics that builds a profile for every machine, user, access key, bucket, etc., which allows us essentially to reduce the noise dramatically. And that's a key aspect of GEM. We reduce the noise dramatically by doing this sort of profiles learning, allowing us to have this wide coverage, but with very high fidelity. When an alert is triggered, we send it to the usual workflow. So we integrate with pretty much any major SIEM, SOAR, ticketing platform, allowing you to use the pane of glass that you're used to. But when it's time to actually respond, then you would go back into GEM if you would need to investigate further. There you can see an example here of an AWS alert in GEM. The platform is multi-cloud. You can see Azure, GCP are here as well. We won't have time to get into that. And you can see here an example of a threat, and this threat is comprised out of 3 alerts. One which is related to previous escalation, an admin policy attached to a role, unusual access from a VPN, and an RDS password, which a database password essentially, which is changed by an instance. All of that is aggregated together to a single thread based on correlations on the entities and time. That's already on its own is super valuable. Now, when you get this alert, you get the relevant events and the graph, but the platform immediately performs auto-investigation. And that allows us to expand what you're going to see here, to expand the graph beyond just the initial story to all the relevant entities involved. So you can see the full timeline with chain of events from the initial activity of the user, all the activity around AWS, machine activity, etc., with a full graph of the entities involved. Each entity is clickable, allowing you to get more information to correlate. So essentially the challenges when you investigate the cloud alert is to understand which alerts are correlated together, what is the timeline, and how I can understand exactly the chain of events. And that's usually translated to multiple SIM queries. And then which aggregations do I need to run to understand what's usual? All is provided together within a single platform, reducing MTTR and initial investigation, initial triage from hours to minutes. Now, when you actually need to respond, there is the next steps here. We have AI for summarization, etc. But there is the next steps here, which allows you to get actual recommendations on how to respond with actual containment capabilities, like stopping a machine, terminating it, taking a forensic snapshot, disabling an access key, deactivating a user, etc. All of that is available within a click of a button, even revertible, and that makes the actual containment faster. And that's how we reduce MTTR from hours to minutes and allow forensics. So in the end, the capabilities that we have seen allow you to see different aspects from ensuring you're ready for a cloud breach, understanding your current coverage, providing detection, and essentially taking you from your level today to the most advanced enterprise, reducing MTTR from hours to minutes, and providing actual containment and forensic capabilities. And this is essentially the CDR and what makes the SOC relevant, both in terms of pace and in terms of skill for the cloud and multi-cloud challenge. I think with that, I will turn it back to you, Terry, for the Q&A.
That's great, Ron. Wow. We've covered a lot of territory in a very short time. Ron and David, really appreciate your insight and perspectives on cloud management and cloud security, especially from the proactive preventive measures discussed. Thank you both. Predictably, your discussion and the demo have generated some questions from our live audience. Just to remind our viewers to ask a question, just type it into that ask a question text area, hit submit. Let's get to your questions. David, I'm gonna direct this to you and ask for Ron to follow up. An audience member is asking what unique skill sets are needed in a SOC to address cloud security compared to just a more traditional, say, non-cloud SOC. Give us 2 or 3 skill sets that maybe differentiate those 2 environments.
I think that if I had to maybe highlight 2, 3 best practices or skills that are needed, I could say that understanding of identity in the cloud is very, very important, because it's quite different, I could say, from the kind of identities that we are used to handle in the on-prem environments. There are very different types of identities. I don't know, managed identities, service principals, human identities, and especially when it has to do with machine identities. That is very important to understand the hierarchy, to understand the different roles, to understand what an attacker can do in order to perform like a privilege escalation. That's one. Another one that I think it's very important in technical terms is understanding DevOps, understanding what the teams are performing and are doing things differently in cloud. They are able to deploy infrastructure, to deploy fast services, by themselves. They don't need maybe the involvement of a central team, and that's something that you also have to understand how it operates. And maybe another thing that I would highlight are a best practice, and it's not so technical, but it's more like a soft skill. I could say that flexibility and continuous adaptation, as I say in the in my presentation, is very important, and flexibility in different different ways. I mean, flexibility to be continuously updated, gaining knowledge, learning from the cloud, because it's a never-ending, evolving environment with many different features, and always coming new features and always coming new functionality services. So you have to keep up with that, and that's a challenge. So you have to be flexible for that. You have to be flexible as well to be open to integrate the tooling that you have with other tools to enrich more and more the context, to be able to integrate and automate. It's another skill that I would highlight, automation skills. And also you have to be flexible, I think, to work in another way with the teams, with the platform teams, because you depend on them in order to have the complete chain covered. It's not as it was, I think, in on-premise, where you were more autonomous to react or to respond to an incident. Here, I think that you depend a lot on the knowledge, privilege, and help of other teams, so you have to be open to that.
Thanks. Ron, anything to add there?
No, I think it pretty much covers it. I would say in the end, it's a story of dramatically higher complexity, dependencies, collaboration, versus endpoint network, which are much more siloed and much more easier to grasp. And that requires different tools and also different processes organization-wise to properly handle that.
Ron, a question for you. You alluded to the ways that GEM uses information from other security tools for context. Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, of course. So I think the most prominent tool for cloud security, most widely known, is the CNAPP family, which is a posture. Also, David mentioned that, cloud security posture. So in the end, as a detection and response tool, if you are not bringing the context of possible vulnerabilities, then it's an important piece for the SOC itself. Those tools are not used by the SOC. They're used by architecture team, DevOps teams. So actually providing alerts to the SOC that bring in other tools from the cloud universe that they don't have access to, which provide additional context to the likelihood and the severity of an attack, that's very, very important to allow them to understand the severity and to investigate faster. And in the end, with more knowledge. They don't know the environment. They have hundreds of accounts. They're not building that. So any information you're able to bring for the cloud native tools themselves and from other cloud security tools makes their investigation simply more relevant.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And unfortunately, that is going to bring us to our time today. Gentlemen, thank you both. I also want to thank our audience for attending today's Black Hat webinar, why a Global 2000 firm implemented cloud detection and response for its next generation SOC. This has been brought to you by Black Hat, GEM Security, and Informa. Sometime in the next 24 hours, you'll be receiving an email with a link that allow you to access this presentation on demand. You're free to share this with colleagues who couldn't have been a part of today's live presentation. On behalf of our guest experts, David Corral and Ron Konigsberg, our sponsor, GEM Security, thanks for your time today. This has been Terry Sweeney for Black Hat. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.